Hi friends, welcome to episode 106. Apologies for the crappy sound quality. My little microphone thing's decided it doesn't want to play ball with me. So we're down to this, using the microphone on the camera. Anyway, last week, well, I didn't think I was going to get that done. Put those panels on the back, got the registration plate and the little lights back on the back of the bus, and got the lights functioning as well, so that's really good. There's still a few little blockages. I've got to do some work on the platform area underneath the staircase. Reason for that is there's a cable conduit that runs around the back of the bus, and it runs through that area. It supplies the saloon lighting, but the cable goes from the middle of the bus, as it were, to those back lights. So in order to do it properly, at the moment I've got a bypass wire in there. I need to get that back at some point, but it's a little bit of a Rubik's Cube. Yeah, gets complicated with an RT, doesn't it? But anyway, yeah, last week, really pleased with progress. This week, not so sure what I'm going to do. But I've got a lot of plans, seriously. I want to start putting the beading back on. I want to see if 2025 can meet 1995, because I did the offside of the bus in about 1995 before I started running my own bus company. And we've almost got around to that back corner. We've still got the big side to do. There's a lot of work there, but the back of the bus will probably meet now 1995. Will we get it done this weekend? Will we get it done next weekend? Will we ever get it done? God knows when. But anyway, stick with me and let's see how we get on. And in that little bit next, I'll tell you what I really got done. Yeah, pretty much all of that. It was a fairly good weekend. It turned out to be quite social as well, because I had two guest visitors, which you'll see at the end of this as well. Indeed, 25 met the work I did 30 odd years ago. And an interesting fun fact, I've owned this bus now for 40 odd years, and it was in service for 25, so it's taken longer to put it back on the road than it's actually running service. Anyway, let's get going, shall we? Right, so the very first project out of the bag is this. You may have noticed last week this panel was missing. I remade this, took the old one off and threw it in the bin basically, and I've made a brand new one and resprayed it. So here it is going back on. So I've got to get this on before I can put any of the rest of the beading on. There's a gutter strip to go just at the bottom there where you see that little green bit. Then I've got another standard piece of beading to go across the top, and this has to go in place before I can do any of that. Now what I'm doing here is there's a little flashing that sits just across the top. So I've pushed that up already and out of the way. I know you can't see it very clearly in the shot, but also the bottom of that little that last piece of glass you see. So you see the top one, and then just below that is a destination glass. That was slightly wonky. So what I had to do was I had to put a G-clamp on it and then hold it down and then put some new screws in it, because it's had a bit of a sad life really. Right, so before we leave this clip, you may have noticed that the white line and the green don't entirely seem to be straight. You'd expect it to be sort of nicely cut in. I haven't really bothered because we've got the beading to go over that, so we can be really we've got about the beading's about 1 inch wide, so you can really be quite poor with it, frankly. Anyway, so there is that panel going back on, and that completes that little task. Well, almost. Did I mention beading? Yeah, I did, didn't I? So you can see that the size of that beading is really quite big, so I don't need to be dead accurate with the paint line. Now, you will notice, and Brian picked me up on this as well, he said, oh, you're not using pneumatic. Yes, I am, but what I'm doing is I need to screw it back onto the bus, because I've replaced all the little wood inserts, and get it back on, and then I'm going to remove it and then put the mastic on. So that's basically the plan. So that's the guttering. Now I took it off ages back and it was a little bit smacked at this corner. because the rear tail swing, I suppose, had caught a tree or something, so that was a little bit flattened. So I straightened it all out, and obviously it's been resprayed. So this is quite an easy one to go back on the bus. So a quick reposition of the ladders so I can get to the rest of it. You've seen before, and I'll show you later on, I use strings sometimes to hold these things in place. Because when you're up at the barn on your own, you really need a little bit of assistance, and a little bit of string tied to the bus really helps. So this is about as far as I can go with it, really. I can't go any further because, as you notice, there's a panel missing as well at the end there. So anyway, I'll take this back off again, having drilled all the holes, which is what I'm doing now. Then remove it and then put the mastic in. So rain strip, hopefully almost finished. I mentioned earlier on how useful bits of string are. Here's 2 bits of string hanging out the blind box. What I've done is I've wrapped them round one of the little rollers that's inside the rear blind. And that bit of beading there goes round both sides. It starts on the near side, then goes right round the back, and then ends up on the off side. And it was a bit of a pain because it was flapping up and down and scratching all the nice paintwork that I'd done. So I was a little bit cheesed off with it. But anyway, that's used the string that way. But I can also tie bits of string on the side of the bus, and then I use it to pull the beading down towards the front or towards the back, depending on which way I'm going. And that really helps get the tension, because if you don't put the tension on the beading, it can end up sort of being a little bit ripply. To prevent the scratches on the paintwork, you notice on the left-hand side there, I've got a bit of masking tape, and that was just purely to stop it getting scratched, because the other side, unfortunately, got scratched to hell. So a little bit cheesed off for that anyway. So there we are. There's some more beading back, and it's starting to look like a bus again, isn't it? Right. So now the work has progressed fairly well at the back of the bus. It's now time to put the rear blind box back in. You can see the Rexine in there. It was Rexine that I did over 30 odd years ago. And unfortunately, it's not really weathered very well. I know it's been entirely in the barn, but some of the brown has bubbled, the green has bubbled really badly, and I used all the proper glue for it as well. And the one that I really struggled with, if you see that one with the mirror on that little corner panel there, that has gone really baggy. It's just basically come off the metal. I managed to get it on the metal years ago by using a heat gun and clamps and pegs and all sorts of things to hold it down. It is a bit of an art, and there's one right at the very front of the RT as well, upstairs, that is known to be a nightmare. So that one I'm probably going to have to take back off again and do again. But the upper deck, it's sad really, because I spent quite a lot of time on the upper deck getting it to look fairly tidy, but unfortunately the 30 odd years or 35 years of it sitting in the barn has not done it any favours. So anyway, it's time to put this blind box back in. While we're here, you might notice that cream coloured spray just behind me there. What that is when they were building the bus originally, they obviously put the ceiling in and then sprayed it. So that's what that is. Also, you might notice there's 2 browns. There's a dark brown and a light brown. There's a dark brown just above the platform area there, and then there's a light brown just on that woodwork. Now that woodwork is entirely hidden, but there were originally 2 different browns. I'm going to do it all with one brown. That's that dark chocolate brown, which I think is quite nice. I really don't like that light brown, to be honest with you. Right, so back to the blind box. All I need to do is just put 2 little wires in, and the little light bulb should work eventually. So that's that one ticked off for now. Right, this is a good moment. Here I am, 30 years ago, up the ladder. You may have seen this picture before. I'm sorry, the clarity of it is a bit rubbish. But taken by my good friend David Smith, who, funny enough, at the time owned the RW bus, which is parked just behind where I am on the ladder. That was RW3, which is still in preservation. So anyway, but we don't have it. It's not in our barn anymore. I've got my RML there, 2428. So there I am as a young man. You hardly any change really. I've stayed exactly like that. No, I haven't really. We are. At the time, I was working for London Underground, so that would have been one of my days off, or maybe an evening when I'd done an early turn at work. So there I am, up on the ladder, removing bits from the bus. So I'm very grateful for David taking this picture, because I really haven't got a great deal from this era. But as you can see, I've stripped down in this picture, which is actually 1990. So I've stripped down all of that offside of the bus, and then I was about to start re-timbering it because the timber had basically fell on the floor. This side was far worse than the near side, and I had sort of, I don't know, nightmares really, thinking that if the near side is as bad as the offside, which there's no reason to suspect it wasn't going to be, then this was going to be an even longer project than I'd have hoped. But luckily, when I took the panels off the near side, it was in really good condition. And there are bits of this RT, it's probably accident repairs over the years, where she's come out really quite well. But sadly, this was terrible. And when I took that wheel arch out, which you can just about see in the corner left-hand side of the shot there, they're worried it wasn't a lot to go on, especially around the bottom of the arches. And now, at the moment, still posing a bit of a problem because I'm slowly recreating that. So once again, there I am up on the ladder. So I had put all of that offside back in before I started my bus company just over 25 years ago, in 2000. So, but by about 1995, the side was in. So this is quite a nice historic shot, really, and it does go to show that these things do take an awful long period of time, especially if you want to do it correctly. But the only thing I didn't do, which I do regret doing, is I didn't spray the panels before I put them up, and I know that's a feature I've changed completely now. Because you notice on the offside, obviously, or near side rather, all the panels are painted before I put them back up again. And the reason I do that is because I like to get paint underneath the beading, because with the expansion and contraction of the panels, you can get cracking just along the edge of the beading. So hence the reason why I like to put paint underneath it. I think it also helps because if it does crack, and you've got paint underneath the beading, then you're not really going to notice much, really. But I've seen a few people that have got their RMs and RTs have been done, and it's cracked, and then the silver of the aluminium shows through, and it really shows it up. So it's a bit sad, really. So you do all that work, and the weather or the expansion and contraction of the panels sort of undoes it all a bit, really. So hence the reason why I like to spray the panels and put them back on. Plus the fact it makes it feel a little better than this side of the bus does, doesn't it? Right, so let's kick off with 1995 meets 2025. 30 years apart. So on the left we have the work we've been doing more recently, and on the right hand side we have the work I did in 1995, as the logo show you. So what I need to do is to get these corner panels back in. Now the very bottom one, which is out of shot, I can't do at the moment because this conduit that goes through the inside of the bus needs to be secured once I put the conduit back inside the bus. Yeah, I mean, you could imagine that if I hadn't taken these panels off, it would have been such a horror story trying to get that wiring through inside. So the very bottom panel, which is out of shot, needs to be left. In fact, it's made of steel and it's really heavy in comparison to these two panels. Now these two panels are both aluminium, and my good friend Alan Brown has remanufactured them for me, and unfortunately slightly different profile, but the right lengths and everything, so I've got a little bit of work to manipulate them to get them back in. So let's get started, shall we? Right, so I discovered when I moved up this flashing, remember I spoke about this before earlier on, this is the stuff that sits underneath one panel and then goes across the top of the other. It's like a roof flashing, and what it does is just diverts water or moisture away from inside the bus. Unfortunately there I'd spotted there was a couple of screws still in the woodwork which were protruding proudly, and as you can see, didn't want to know, so I had to get the big guns out. Yeah, the ever faithful grinder had to come out. There was a couple of little screws in there. They're not really big, but best thing to do in this circumstance is just carefully grind them out, which I quite enjoy doing. I know it's November, so here we are with a fireworks display. Right, so that done, I think there was another one in there somewhere. I was just looking at it. So with that done now, we can now find that panel. Right, so this is one of the panels you saw earlier. As you notice, all sprayed up, primed up, and I put the white on there as well. That band's quite nice and straight. I had to slide it underneath the two bits of beading for a 1995, and then pop it back up. But it was the actual curvature on it is Alan obviously did a bloody good job of cutting them and rolling them. But the curvature was very slightly out. So what I ended up having to do was to get the ball of string out and then attach this panel to the string and then pull it down as hard as I possibly could with the back panel anchored on to the rear. So that's how I managed to do it. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with this actually. Now it is a momentous moment to get this panel back in place after all those years. So yeah, 95 meets 25. Yeah, so once that was on, that was about as far as I got because the panel just below it needed a little bit of trimming. I've got a Bosch metal cutter, and in the summertime it got really damp in the shed when it poured with rain, and I pulled it out and tried to use it, and it blew all the lights in the shed. And apparently, according to an electrician friend of mine, it's an earth fault. So, and I thought, well, I took it home, dried it all out, and I brought it back to the barn, and it blew all the lights out again. So, I'm going to have to work out how I'm going to get. I'll have to get it fixed, I suppose. So, anyway, there we are. That's as far as we got. But I'll tell you what, yeah, I'm really quite pleased with that. Right, I really didn't fancy doing this job. This is that area underneath the staircase. Now, I know it all looks really grim, doesn't it? The stairs look grim. The inside of the bus, you can see I've still got the masking paper on from where I sprayed the wheel arches, which are now covered in dust, unfortunately. But you might remember from a previous edition when I put that nice isolator and boost socket on, I had to take this panel off here on the left-hand side of the aperture. And while it was off, I decided to give it a flat down and respray just sort of, I think, about the second coat, but it does need a third or fourth coat on it, I think. But the reason for this is I've got to climb into this aperture, which I'm not looking forward to do, to rub down all that back wall. Now, the point of this is that in order to get, you can see that wiring on left of shot, that's the power supply for the interior lights. Now, if I'm going to turn the lower deck into a sort of a pseudo workshop area during the winter so I can get on with the inside of the bus, I need to, I'd like to at least get the saloon lights working because they will give a good source of light for the time being. So I've got to fit this little piece of conduit that you see here. So the two little square sort of panels or boxes alongside are the housings for the saloon lights. I've cleaned all the terminals up and they're around the back of the shed. But these two I wanted to give another quick repaint to because I've probably painted them about a year ago and they picked up all the dust and got a bit manky. So what you see there, that's sprayed in black with a very small amount of varnish added into the final coat. So that the top bit is the conduit and then there's a little cover for it which is just below the edge of that conduit. So once I can get that in, all that wiring that you saw on the floor of the bus can then go back in where it should be and then link up onto these boxes and then hey presto, that should all be finished. But there is still an awful lot of work I've got to do in the area before I can put that conduit back in. And also that little piece that you saw before that ran across from sort of left to right at bottom of shot, that is holding me up putting the rear panel on because it needs to be secured at both ends. At the moment it's loose at both ends on purpose, obviously, so I can re-manoeuvre that bit of conduit you saw earlier on back into place. So I've got to clamber into this space and I'm not as small as I used to be years ago, so I've just got to fit up the DA and then I'm going to climb into here and rub this down. It's a bit like fun, isn't it? Can you imagine that? I must admit, the only thing I will say, genuinely, is it was actually quite warm in there. It was quite nippy that day. So it was not too bad to be sitting in there rather than be standing on the freezing cold concrete floor. You may see on the odd occasion, you might see me limping about and it affects my ankles. when I'm standing on that cold floor in there. So this is actually quite nice to be in there. It's quite welcoming. Although it's tinier than a phone box, and you're in there trying to rub all that wood down. Now, I suppose to be fair, there's loads of runs in there that I noticed. It's not an area that anybody would have particularly bothered with. It's just, well, who looks in there? Who sticks their head up in that space? But I want to get it done, and I want to get that sprayed. I can't get that conduit back in, so we've got that finished. So, right, so we might as well wrap on that now. But I have a funny feeling we're going to be coming back to this area at some point in another edition. Anyway, should we get on with the social stuff? Right, so Saturday I was pleased to see my good friend Andrew Tanner. Andrew runs his own bus company called Cardinal Buses in the Surrey Staines area, but also he's got former London Transport BL49, which he's restored, and he uses it on the odd occasion. So it was really great to have a chat with Andy, because we both run bus companies together, so we can have a natter about the issues that face the bus industry, as well as bus preservation. So I was really pleased that Andy made a trip, virtually all the way across London to see me. So it was fantastic to see Andy. On Sunday, I saw my good friend Keith West, and Keith West was another vehicle preservationist from years ago, because he used to own this bus. This is RF366 or MXX8. He owned this, and he did quite a lot of work when we were down the docks at Beckton all of those years back. So it was really great to see Keith as well. There is a little bit of a sort of slight connection between Keith and RTs. Keith's dad was Sam West, who used to work at what was Leaside District in the old London Transport days. And he worked with Ken Blacker, Ken Blacker, of course, being the person who wrote the RT Bible virtually. So, so a bit of a tenuous link there, but really good to see both Andy and Keith at the weekend. Right, well, that's about it for this edition. Thanks very much for watching. Yes, I know it's very slow progress. I know I've said that before. And we're now into winter, and it is really starting to feel it. So, yeah, I mean, I've finished with this shot, the back of the bus, with some of the beading on and the corner panels. So I'm really pleased that the work I've done in 25 has met the work I did over 30 years ago. Good Lord. How time flies. But I've owned that bus now, I think, longer than it's actually been in service. But hopefully we can make some progress next summer. And I'm looking forward to getting this back out on the road eventually. I think it'll be quite an attraction once it's done. So anyway, if you want to watch any more of my videos, you're more than welcome to. And thank you very much, obviously, for watching this one. And YouTube, as usual, would recommend some more. So, thanks very much for watching, and I look forward, as usual, to doing the next one.